When I was but a wee TF2 playing boy, I distinctly remember finding and watching this one TF2 theory that ArraySeven had made. To oversimplify it for you, this was a theory about how the medic was actually the devil in disguise and that all of the events of TF2 took place in hell because the mercenaries were terrible sinners. This theory was uploaded 11 years ago! Damn, I need to go outside. And rang so true with young me that I instantly shared it to all of my buddies as if it was canon. I went back to watch it the other day and yeah, it's kind of awful. But there was one comment that ArraySeven made during the video that I'm going to play for you now.
And according to Dante, there are 9 circles to hell, just like there are 9 classes in the game. Another subtle hint.
So there are 9 mercenaries in TF2 and 9 correlating circles to hell. So cue thumbnail. This is a fun one, as we'll basically just be taking a look at which personality trait will be the one to condemn each merc to hell for all of eternity, so stick around, you'll have a good time. But on a quick irrelevant side note, I, as an Englishman, have never had a bag of Cheetos. This is true, we don't really get these over here very often. But I was speaking to the manager of my local small Tesco's, and he said that if I hit 8 billion subscribers before the end of the year, he will consider getting some shipped in. This is entirely true. So please subscribe so I can taste that greasy, cheesy deliciousness that everyone keeps talking about. And if you're interested, once you're done watching this, I have a whole other playlist on my channel of like-minded silly content which you can check out. So the 9 circles of hell are referenced in a poem written by a man called Dante Alighieri. In the poem, Dante is guided through the 9 circles he describes as making up hell as we know it. So each one of our mercs is going to belong to one of these circles. I'll explain how these circles work as we go along, but to get things started, why don't we talk about which merc belongs in the topmost layer, Limbo. So Limbo is a bit of an interesting layer in that it's not necessarily hell as you'd envision it. The characteristics of Limbo are that it's basically just normal Earth, except no one can die and everyone knows that they are in limbo. So the eternal punishment is knowing the fact that you can't die and you are indeed in limbo. So out of the 9 sick bastards we have to talk about today, which one most deserves to be in limbo forever? Well, I'm going to say it's Pyro, and I'm going to ask you to hear me out on this one. So, as mentioned in my previous video, it's very likely that Pyro doesn't actually know he's a flamethrowing maniac, as the Pyrovision goggles themselves are what gives Pyro Pyrovision. Evidence to support this comes in the fact that whenever any of the other mercs put on the Pyrovision goggles, they see the exact same thing that he does. So there's a very, very good chance that within all of the gravel walls, Pyro may be innocent. This of course all depends on what Pyro was doing before he put on the Pyrovision goggles and how long he's been wearing them for. And since Pyrovision is kind of the opposite of Limbo, in which Pyro probably has no idea what he's doing, and in Limbo everybody knows that they're in Limbo, I feel thematically this just kind of makes sense. So congratulations Pyro, your punishment for being a pyromaniac was the knowing that you were always indeed a pyromaniac. The next circle is the Circle of Lust, and well, we all know who's going here. The Circle of Lust is where people go who have committed sexual crimes, and the eternal punishment here is constantly being blown about by really strong winds. This circle plays upon the idea that those who spend their entire lives being blown about by lust will spend the rest of eternity being blown about. And well, if that doesn't sound like Scout, then I don't know what does. Now, sexual crimes is a bit of a stretch because we don't really know what Scout has gotten up to in his spare time, but if you want to take both the description and the name of the track Terrorizer literally as an example, then I think we can confidently say that Scout is a man who has been blown about by lust. So blown about he shall be forever. How fitting. Now these first few punishments might not actually sound that bad, but don't worry, they get worse. You see, everything above the 5th circle is dedicated to those who've just committed more general sins. However, all of the circles below Wrath are dedicated to those who have committed actual sins against other people. So from Wrath onwards, things descend into the realms of fiery torture and what you typically associate with hell. Isn't this a fun topic? Anyway, the next circle is the Circle of Gluttony, and it's pretty much what you'd imagine. This is where all the world's greedy piggies end up, and one of their eternal punishments is constantly being pelted by a mixture of rain, ice, sleet and hail. Which doesn't sound too bad, but then you also find out that this is where Cerberus lives, that one 3-headed dog. And he goes round eating all the people, so this circle plays on the idea that those who ate for their entire lives will now be eaten for all of eternity. In this circle, people either regenerate once being eaten, or just kind of lie there on the floor, half-eaten forever. So it's a never-ending circle of snack time. And speaking of never-ending circles of snack time, what does that remind you of? Yeah, I'm sorry, Heavy, this is probably where you'd be going. Heavy is by no means a glutton, but he is a fat bastard. And so, out of everyone here, I feel he best fits the circle of gluttony. It might not all be bad news for Heavy though. I mean, we've seen him tame dogs in the comics with food before, so maybe he could do the same with Cerberus. You never know. Now the next circle is the circle of greed, and this was by far the hardest one to decide on for this video. Greed in this context refers to the physical hoarding of items, so things like money. And the punishment is that everyone here is constantly pushing around either really heavy boulders or huge bags of money and fighting each other. So the play on terms is that you are now forced to fight people with the weight of your wealth that you accumulated. And upon hearing this, you can probably start to understand the problem I had. None of our mercs are greedy in the sense of how Dante would use the word. I mean, yeah, they're all working for money, but so is everyone else on the planet. So I had to get a bit creative for this one, and I eventually decided that this is where Demo is going. We know that Demo makes a lot of money and has multiple jobs. In fact, in the War comic, we're not only told he makes $5 million a year, but we're also shown the mansion he lives in. All of this is spurred on by his mother, who doesn't really seem to be a greedy person, but is instead insistent that Demo is lazy. Demo Man's father, for example, had 26 jobs, but also didn't make anywhere near as much as him. So whilst it may not be greed that spurs Demo on, he does seem to have amassed quite a fortune. And if we were to take a look at the item description for the liquor locker, it seems his plans are to drink that fortune. So there you go, hopefully that convinced you of something somehow. The final circle before we descend into the real belly of the beast is the Circle of Wrath. Now, wrath in this context is used a bit differently to how you probably understand it, as it's not really just a circle for violence, but it's a circle dedicated to all those who are just unnecessarily angry, grumpy, or constantly talked bad about others all the time. The punishment here is that the entire circle is one big muddy swamp, and everyone in it is either choking on their own rage or fighting with each other. So yeah, in case you misunderstood, there is a specific circle of hell, according to Dante, that is dedicated to those who are just mean, angry, or grumpy all the time. So we're putting Sniper in here. Sniper is one grumpy bastard. I don't know who pissed in his dinner, but actually tell you what, it was probably himself. But he just seems to have it out for everything and everyone. Whenever you get a kill with him, he's always muttering under his breath, he doesn't really seem to like any of the other mercs at all, and he always prides himself on being a professional, despite the fact he is always throwing jars of his own pee. So well done, Sniper. If there was ever a circle in Dante's poem designed specifically around you, it will be this one tenfold. And now, my friends, we have to talk about the lower circles. Things that will get you sent to one of these circles include everything from crimes against God to fraud, so that's fun. But before we cover any of that, you see these numbers here? I said last time to fix them, you didn't fix them properly, so fix them. Fix these numbers! Anyway, so the next circle is the Circle of Heresy. For those who don't know, a heretic is someone who holds firm beliefs that go against the church. So heresy is the general name that said beliefs are labelled as. The punishment for this circle is that everyone is being lied down in stone tombs which are constantly being stoked with flames, whilst fallen angels circle the tombs and make sure everyone is properly suffering. Now upon hearing this, you might not think this really matches any of our mercs, as all of them are hired killers and none of them have really shown any religious beliefs one way or the other. However, this is where I'd like to swoop in and say that I think Engineer belongs in this circle. To our knowledge, Engineer has built not one, not two, but 3 life extender machines. The blueprints for these machines were originally designed by the Engineer's grandfather, Radican Conager, and his motive for doing so was this quote here by Blutarch Man. Quote, "God wants me dead, Mr. Conager, and we are going to defy him." And well, that sounds like a lot of heresy to me. This is even something ArraySeven picks up in his original video, so you know I'm on the right track. Breaking the natural order of life and death and pumping a life-extending metal into someone's bloodstream has got to be some pretty strong heresy. So I really hope Engineer enjoys his steak well done, because he's gonna be one forever. The penultimate circle is the Circle of Violence, and you can bet your ass this is where Soldier's going. Now, the Circle of Violence is split into 3 different parts between those who committed violence against others, those who committed violence against themselves, and those who committed violence against God. So I feel Soldier is going to lie pretty firmly in the those who committed violence against others category, and the punishment found in this section is the River Phlegethon, which is basically just a boiling river of blood. The damned will have to lie in it forever as centaurs guard the river, making sure no one gets out. So do I really need to explain why Soldier is ending up here? This man is nothing but violence, it's what gets him up in the morning. But I will add that this is the circle ArraySeven originally thought all the mercs would be going to. But considering how we're limiting one merc to one circle, I think Soldier's making his new home in here, and I don't really think he's gonna mind. Now, the actual penultimate circle we have to talk about is the Circle of Fraud, which is split into 10 different sections. Do not worry, we will not be covering them all. The only section, or Bulger as they're properly known, that we're interested in is the outer one, because this is where I believe Spy would reside. The most outer Bulger is for fraudsters fraudsters of love. So anyone that has conned anyone into doing anything love related is probably going to end up in this circle. Granted, this is quite similar to the lust circle, but it has its own defining rules. And the eternal punishment given here is that those who have been damned to this circle must run for all of eternity whilst devils whip them if they go too slow. Now, we don't know the entire story between Spy and Scout's mum, however we do know for a fact that he is Scout's father and that he ran away from Scout's mum during her pregnancy. The reason he said he did this was because he was young at the time, but it seems he's still quite fond of Scout's mum. But unless my understanding of the source literature is completely wrong, I still think this counts as a fraud in the love department. Spy betrayed the family he could have had with Scout, leaving him without a father, which is quite sad. So no amount of going out for milk or fags is going to save you from this one, Spy. Should have stuck around. And at last, we have reached the final circle of hell, the circle of Treason. And this is where Medic resides. The ninth circle of hell is split into 5 different parts, with 4 of them being huge frozen lakes, and 1 of them being the centre in the middle where Lucifer himself resides. And that is where we will find our Medic, because we actually know that when he dies, he goes straight to hell and talks to the devil himself. But then he escapes because he has accumulated all of the souls of the other mercenaries and uses them to bargain with the devil. Which means that if all of the other mercenaries didn't have souls, they technically couldn't die and be sent to hell, which might mean that this entire video is pointless. Thanks for watching everyone, and thank you for sticking around to the end. As you might have been able to tell, this video required a lot of research, so I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribed as well. I'm also very sorry if I misunderstood any of the source material at any point and offended you somehow, but I don't care. Anyway, that's one final thank you from me for watching, and I will see you later down the sunny road.